Welcome to The Scoop with Dukes. I'm your host, Philip Dukes, a.k.a. Dukes the Scoop. Check me out on Twitter and Instagram at Dukes the Scoop. And please be sure to hit the like and subscribe button. If you have not become a member of the channel yet, make sure you go to the description. We have varying levels of support. Scroll down to the bottom, hit that link, become a member, and keep this content coming to you. Falcons Training Camp Day 3. Touchdowns. Had a lot of touchdowns. Had some turnovers. Also had some brouhahas. They got the scrapping. Teach a man how to squabble. So that's expected in preseason camp for tempers to flare eventually. But the fact that it was a fight isn't what really excites me. It's who. Now, James Pearce Jr. was at the focal point. He was the guy. The talk of camp of day 3 was James Pearce Jr. And before I go any further, I want to give a shout out to Adnan Ikic of the Falcoholic. Shout out to the Falcoholic. Him, Kevin Knight, they do a phenomenal job. I shout him out every time because I've been a follower of that website since I don't know, as even when I was covering Auburn or before I even got into journalism at all, when I was covering Auburn for CBS Sports or when I was working as a national analyst for On3, I always followed the Falcoholic. So shout out to Knight. And this report, I got a lot of this from Adnan Ikic's report. So go check that out on the falcoholic.com. And I also was able to supplement that information and kind of married it together with Mr. Mark Raymundi's report from ESPN.com. So I got to give them their props for sure for being my eyes until I can get to camp, which will be tomorrow. But, all right, cool. James Pearce Jr. is the guy who's throwing blows, getting into it, mixing it up. And let's just get into what happened. So he was involved in 2 scuffles during 11-on-11 drills. The first scuffle involved center Ryan Newsel. They kind of got in. It was a little heated. And then Matthew Bergeron right after that. All right, cool. Then, during the Bergeron deal or a little bit after, he gets into it with Caleb McGarry. And then Leonard Floyd has his back. I thought that was very important. That even when Pearce was getting into it with the offensive line, nobody left the rookie on an island. Leonard Floyd was there to support him. I think that's important because in order to gain the trust of a first round pick, the guy who comes in, highly touted, the man in the building, right? You speak to a veteran who's already been there, who's not only telling you, young blood, this is how you do this, and young blood, this is how you do that. But he's saying, look, I got your back. So if anybody you should listen to, it should be me. I think this relationship is going to be important to his development. The last time, so Leonard Floyd, shout out to Leonard Floyd. I think it was an underrated signing, not only for what he can provide as a pass rusher, but for being a veteran who's done it. It's not just for him. He can help Jaywalk. He can help Pearce Jr. And he can help Arnold Ebiketie as he develops, right? So Leonard Floyd can play that role. I wouldn't say as much as Dwight Freeney played when he was here and how he helped mentor Vic Beasley when he had that 15.5 sack season. But I think Leonard Floyd can play something of the sort of that role. So for him to jump in and have James Pearce Jr.'s back in these scuffles, I think was important. It's a tone setter. And one thing about it, Pearce Jr. is setting his reputation up right now. Now, coming out of Tennessee, there were character concerns, quote unquote, and people were saying, maybe he's not the best teammate, doesn't get along with everybody, but I don't care about none of that. And the Falcons did their research clearly because the Falcons have the Falcons filter, 1,000%. And for them to still spend so much capital, basically saying in next year's draft, we're gambling on the fact that we don't need a first rounder next year. We got our first rounder this year. I'm sure they did the requisite inspection or background check, the due diligence. It did whatever needed to be done to make sure that James Pearce Jr. was going to be a positive member of this team. And I think that him still being that dog, still ain't going for nothing at a position where you haven't had a lot of fire in a long time, I think is really important. Another important piece to this is you want the intensity. So defensive coordinator Jeff Ulbrich and some of the offensive coaches, they both acknowledged the intensity, but they said maybe it went a little too far. Ulbrich said, and quote, "We want the intensity, violence, and aggression, but things need to stop short of punches being thrown." Understood, coach. We don't need you actually coming to blows, but we want that type of violence. We want that type of intensity. The Falcons fans do too. They also want that violence. They also want that intensity. Another thing that I saw that Adnan and Raymondi quoted was Matt Ryan. No, excuse me, Kirk Cousins, not Matt Ryan. Kirk Cousins. After a batted ball, he pulled Pearce Jr. to the side and told him, like, "Good job." I think James Pearce Jr. is a player. And one thing about it, I'd rather have, and not comparing him to a dog, but when you think about it, if you have a security dog, do you want a security dog you got to tone down, or do you want a security dog that you got to make bite? So if you got to, this is your life on the line. If you got a dog that ain't gonna bite, it's hard to make a dog bite if they not gonna bite. I'd rather have a dog that's gonna bite and you say, all right, a little bit too much, but you know that bite is in them. You know that fight is in them. You know that dog is in them. And I think that's what you have with James Pearce Jr. So knowing that you just have to tone them down as a defensive lineman, I'll take it. And the defensive lineman be a little thrown off. So, you need that. And there's something that Falcons do need. So that was an exciting development. I'm glad nobody was seriously hurt. But if you're a Falcons fan, you got to be excited about the intensity of James Pearce Jr. All right, so yesterday, we got to talk about training camp day 2. I put out a video. I said, is it a quarterback competition? Is it a controversy? Kirk Cousins goes out and goes 9 for 10. Mike Penix, and I adjusted the stats. They had him at 5 for 14. Some people had him at 6 for 13. I know there were at least 3 to 4 drops. So I said, okay, let's put Penix at 8 to 14. But I was like, it just posed an interesting question to me. And I said, hey, what if Kirk Cousins outperforms Mike Penix? I think it got to Mike Penix because the very next day, Mike Penix said, bruh, you must be on either dope or dog food. Ain't no way I'm losing this job. Mike Penix proceeds to go 13 of 16 passing overall, 13 of 16, 2 for 2 against the first team defense, connected on multiple gains of over 10 yards. And then in the red zone, my boy went Wendy's on him. 4 for 4. Perfect. Yes, sir. So my apologies to MP9, and shout out to Kirk Cousins too. I think he's going to be a great backup. But that's my fault. I shouldn't have questioned Mr. Penix. And he came right back out the next day and said, hey, that was an aberration. That was an exception and not the norm. I'm the guy for this job. The targets that he hit, in the red zone, he hit Ray McLeod, Drake London, Chris Blair. Hit Drake London 4 times, Ray McLeod 3 times, Kyle Pitts 2 times before he left practice. We'll talk about that. Bijan Robinson twice, Quitoriano once, and Blair once. And they said all Penix's throws to Ray McLeod were for big games. You got to love that. And he also threw a fade touchdown to Blair in the back right corner of the end zone. So Mike Penix is the guy for the job. You got to be excited, And it's crazy because even when he went 5 for 14, there was still like an air that's still, with the drops, you knew it was like, okay, cool. It ain't that. But for him to come right back and go 13 for 16 and perfect in the red zone, hello, we got a guy. He's a guy. Kirk Cousins, on the other hand, Yeah, he didn't have a bad outing. Went 7-12, but against the first team defense. But they said he was mostly dinking and dunking. He had a touchdown pass to Nick Nash doing red zone drills, but they said Big Root Arohoro, make sure I say that right. Root. They said he would have sacked him. He had him dead to right. So you can count that touchdown or not, but we'll go 7-for-12. Receiving targets for Kirk Cousins on the day. Carlos Washington had 2. David Sills, the big former quarterback out of West Virginia, had 1. Elijah Dotson had 1. Casey Washington had 1. Nick Nash had 1. And Nikola Kalinic, I think, he had 1. Okay, the kicking competition. Lenny Craig went 5-for-5, including a 50-yarder and a 55-yarder that was clean. You got a real kicker competition. So Young Wei Koo, 4-for-5 on field goals. He missed from 47 yards. Last year, Koo left a lot to be desired. Not the same Koo that we always knew. Not the Koo that we knew. But Lenny Craig, Krieg, like Dave Craig. He's making a case for it early on in camp, and so we'll see how this develops and see. And camp isn't just about having a splash day; it's about consistency. So I think even with like when we talk about James Pearce, we talk about Root, we talk about Mike Penix. Can you come back and do this every day? There's an old saying, and I always use it. And I remember when I was working as a warehouse supervisor in my late 20s, we had a good day of production. In the AGM, a guy by the name of Roger Thrash, I think he's like way high up. Assistant general manager at the time, he's way high up. I had a good day, and he walks back there. He said, "Look, you got something nobody can teach, but I want to tell you something right now. You have a good day, that's luck. You have a good month, that means that cycle is repeatable. So do you want to be lucky or good? You won't be good or great until you find out how to make this cycle of you being good for the day repeatable for a month." And I think that's the same thing. You got a month, you got to make the cycle repeatable. And I think that if Lenny Craig can do that, they're going to have to be some tough decisions made. All right, depth chart, personnel notes. Jalen Walker and Zach Harrison did not practice. DJ Shark was at practice, but did not participate in 11-on-11s. Braylon Trice got second team reps as an edge with Walker out. Glad to see Trice in the mix. Looking forward to seeing what he can do this year. Rookie offensive tackle Jack Nelson rotated with the first team with the ones for Caleb McGarry, who is going to be the blindside protector now, even at right tackle. In the first team defensive line, the edge rotation, Ebikadi, Onyemata, Brandon Dorless, Floyd, Arohoro, Khalid Kareem. And then second team guys who got some work were J.D. Bertrand, Morgan Fox, Kentavious Street, and Josh Woods. In the secondary, second team reps, my man Lamar Jackson, the other Lamar Jackson, I think he's a sleeper. I think even at his size, I think just when you want to go to some cover 3, you want somebody with some length to cover that deep third who can run. I think Lamar Jackson will be a great candidate. And Xavier Watts and Billy Bowman both got second team reps. A key notable defensive play that was noted was Caden Ellis diagnosed and broke up a flat route from Pennix intended for Tyler Algier. Kyle Pitts had 2 catches early, but did not participate after getting tangled up with a defender. So I think the major takeaways for for yesterday's training camp practice would be you really got to like what you see, the intensity out of James Pearce Jr., your first round pick. I just remember being at the combine. I'll probably post a video tomorrow, but I just remember the combine. He went Thursday, so the combine wasn't packed yet. Like this year, the combine got really packed when Colorado, when Shador was there and the wide receivers went. Combine was crazy. But Thursday, not a lot of people there. Defensive linemen, edge rushers, linebackers, stuff like that. Man, when James Pearce Jr. ran, it was just like a silence came over Indiana at the time. Up there in Naptown, it's like everybody was like, bro, did he just do that? did this big, you know what, just run that fast? I got the video. You can just see everybody just like, and then they posted. And on the second one, they don't post the time on the first one. They posted on the second one. And you can just see everybody just go, ooh, you can hear it. So James Pearce Jr. was somebody who he's physically imposing, physically exciting. And what I'm going to do, man, I'm going to get Marcus Howard, former Georgia Bulldog, former NFL veteran. I'm going to bring him on the show because he trains Jay Walk and he trains James Pearce Jr. So we'll bring them both on here. I mean, we'll bring Marcus Howard to talk about both. Maybe one day I'll get them both on here. But at this point, we're gonna bring Marcus Howard on so he can just give you some feedback on what he saw from them pre-draft. Not pre-draft, excuse me, post-draft after they signed to the Falcons. All right, guys. Make sure you tell a friend to tell a friend. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram at DukesTheScoop. If you're an Auburn fan, I also have Auburn coverage. If you're a Colorado fan, I have Colorado coverage. And we will be starting some UGA coverage as well. So subscribe to the channel and find what playlist you like. Maybe even get some Braves coverage if they can win a game. Sheesh. Oh, yeah. Shout out to the Braves cap. Hank Aaron special. 7-15, baby. All right, man. Appreciate y'all.